What's up, folks? Sean, the average angler, and fall is upon us. I feel it in the air. I'm in the garage, in the shop, you know, same place I almost always am. And it's, I'm in a short sleeve. Feel a little chill in the air as that sun starts to go down, which means fun fishing's coming for those of us that are still getting out and doing it. If you guys are up north, you're probably already well into this. I talked to a few of you today. Thanks for the comments, letting know the temperatures where you're at and that kind of thing. And from what it looks like to me, unless we get a really good cold snap for a couple days, we're going to be dealing with the same kind of conditions for at least a couple more weeks. So for November, with that in mind, and I'll give you a couple scenarios where we'll change it. So there's going to be a few extra baits here, but mostly casting rods, okay? And like I said, at the end, we're going to get into those other situations where we might mix in a couple of other baits or special locations where we might mix in some of those other baits. So with that in mind, the fish can be all over the place. You got your deep fish, you got your shallow fish, you got your tweener fish. What they have in common is most likely the majority of those are going to be chasing bait. Now the bait doesn't necessarily have to be shallow. There's always crawdad eating fish too, okay? That's never going to stop. So anyway, let's get into our baits. And something that I know maybe not everybody throws, sometimes it's a little intimidating or what have you, is a glide bait. And this is what I'm going to suggest, okay? This is a River to Sea 168 S-Waver, okay? It's really not very big. I wouldn't say you need a special rod for it. If you've got something, Alabama rig rod, that'd work great for this. A heavy crankbait rod will work great for this. If you have a parabolic flipping stick, work great for this, okay? Something in the 15 to 20 pound range is really all you need to throw this on. Don't try to huck at a country mile if you've never thrown one before. Get used to it a little bit, because the extra weight will load the rod, and if you try to fling it too fast, cause backlash, okay? But these have really good drawing power, and when you consider some of the other size baits that we're going to be throwing right now, drawing power can be a big deal, okay? So while this is not my favorite glide bait, it is easier to throw than something like this, okay? This is going to be a bit heavier. These are pretty inexpensive. I think they're less than 20 bucks. Use a snap on the front and you'll find that it swims a little bit better, okay? So that's just a suggestion. Get a little confidence in those. You will thank me later, because springtime, early spring into the spawn and post spawn, they can be phenomenal, okay? All right, so next, you already saw it, right? We're sticking with a square bill, depending on where you're at, the size of your bait, 1.5s, okay? These are 6 cents, so I believe they're 50s. I still really like the crod color just to draw attention. A lot of times, if everything's keyed on shad and your bait looks just like everything else, they may not notice it, right? So I've got quite a few shad ones here. This one's got some reflective properties on it, but this is something I like to throw anytime I'm trying to get their attention, okay? It's dark on the top, it's got that red and orange. I'm a big fan of craw-colored square bills. What I didn't pull out that I'm going to tell you and add, since I said fish can still be shallow, fish can still be deep, is a deep diving crankbait, okay? Something like a River to Sea, what the hell are they called? DD crankbait from the boys at Tactical Bassin. A Strike King 6 series, something like that, okay? 15 to 18 foot, good zone to be in. Windy days, I like these little This is a Mullix spinnerbait. It might be a little harder to find, but you'll notice it's a little smaller than like an average spinnerbait. Okay, I just really like these this time of year. I'll fish them fast, high in the water column, kind of, you know, reeling pretty quick. Every once in a while, give it the little chatterbait juke, and I will use a small swim bait as a trailer on that. Next, there we go, right there. It seems to have been a chatterbait year all across the country. We're gonna stick with the chatterbaits. We got a shad pattern, and we have the craw stand out amongst everything else pattern. This is that first gen with the two BBs up there for a different sound. Of course, I really like the Evo. The jackhammer can't go wrong with in a shad pattern. And I am going to, most of the time, use the single tail grub this time of year just because I like that variety, and most people aren't doing it. So I'm still a little bit different, give a little bit action, different action and look. For those mid-size or mid-depth fish and deeper fish, I still like an underspin. Okay, if I'm having a tough time getting bit, I like an underspin. Now this one probably a little small. I cut the front off. I was crappie fishing with that at my local lake. Probably gonna go with something like a 3.3 to 3.8. If I'm at Clear Lake, I'm probably gonna go 4 to 4.5. The other one that I really like is the Rapala, the Mayor. Another shallow bait. If you have grass, your grass is dying, but it's still standing, it's such a good place. And this is probably number one thing I'm gonna do. If I see that situation, I'm going straight for a swim jig, okay? I grabbed two here because I just wanna show you something. And a lot of this is confidence. These are both shad colored swim baits, okay? These are made by Mr. B, local builder. This has a white painted head. This one's raw, okay? I'm a much bigger fan of the raw. I don't know, I just like the raw color better. I'll throw both. Given the choice, and I have both with me, I'm always gonna throw the raw. I just have more confidence with it. And on this, I'm going to put one, I'd trim the skirt up a little bit, okay? A little bit too much skirt for me on here. Gonna throw a 3.3 Kitech. The alternative to the Kitech would be the Zone Swammer. I'll put a link in the description, but I think those are 3.75. If you want to shorten it up a little bit, just cut a little bit off the front of it and you'll be good to go. The Swammer, because of the body, it rolls a little bit more, so that's really nice when throwing a swim jig to give it some action. You don't have to impart it. Another thing, Tactical Bassin talks all the time, they love the Swammer. I've been fishing the Swammer since before they were talking about it. It's a great alternative, and it really does make the bait rock. I mentioned some circumstances that can really dampen the bite before we get to the second scenario, the fall turnover, okay? That is going to be multiple day cold fronts. It may not get the water temperature quite to where it's gonna flip, but as we all know, spotted bass may not mind, but largemouth bass don't like temperature changes that happen too fast. And quite honestly, neither do shad, okay? So if you have that situation where we have a couple days where it's cold, temperatures around freezing, not getting much over mid-60s during the day, so the daytime's not really warming the water back up, because remember, it's only that surface that's cooling, right? Once you get down to a certain temperature, it takes more than one day to penetrate. So the sun comes back out, it will start to warm that water back up. But if it's not getting very warm, or if you have wind blowing, the wind's going to help churn that up. It can really shut the fish off for a couple of days while they adjust. Now, it doesn't mean those fish won't eat. Oftentimes what it does mean is those fish don't want to chase. So most of this other stuff we were talking about is chasing stuff. Okay? Now, again, this is a time where I will throw a downsized underspin, and I want to make sure it's banging bottom. It needs to be hitting the rocks on the bottom. The other one, surprise, surprise, is the jig, okay? And on certain bodies of water, I'm going to throw a jig anyway. I'm always going to have the jig tied on, honestly, and it's going to be on my deck. My local body, the jig hasn't been working very well. Clear Lake, the jig bite's been on for a month plus. It just depends on where you're at. We have other Maloney's, notorious jig bite lake, right? Maloney's is also a great S-waiver lake. Don Pedro, always been really good to me with jigs. McClure, same thing. So keep in mind, if your leg's a jig lake, Berryessa, I'm going to give you this on Berryessa. This is something for me. Until that water hits 54 degrees, I just don't fish the jig much there, because quite honestly, I've tried and tried and tried for years, and it just doesn't seem to produce for me the way I expect it to until that water cools off. And Berryessa is a very unique lake because it's rare to see it under 52 degrees. I don't know what it is. And I'm not talking surface temperature, folks. I'm talking, you know, it might be colder than that in the morning when it's freezing overnight. But as soon as the sun hits the water, all of a sudden it's 56 degrees, okay? Then the water wasn't under 52. So it's just something I've noticed about Berryessa. I don't know what it is. Clear Lake gets way colder. Clear Lake will drop into the 40s. They're right down the street. They basically have the same weather, but it's a lot deeper lake. And I don't know what it is that keeps Berryessa warmer, but it does, all right? Berryessa is a notoriously good crankbait lake, especially in the afternoons. Again, I don't know why. I just know that it is. All right, so that's what we got for November with our water temperatures prior to the lake turning over, okay? I'm going to do another one in a couple days, another video in a couple days, and we'll go over some of those post-turnover things and what we're going to change. But right now, we're power fishing, power fishing, power fishing. The other thing you can mix in on those days if you get multiple cold fronts is, and I hate to say this, a Ned rig. When they're negative, that Ned rig just gets bit. Sean the Average Angler, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. We will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching again.